Well, with this body of work and this, I'm going to call it a calling, pardon the pun, that you have, I just want to address leadership. You've talked about leaders. They have to stay positive. They have to trust others, and they really have to stick to their beliefs. Bringing it back to, our viewers and our listeners, how can our podcast listeners that dial in for rich content, how can they use those traits of positivity, trust, and sticking to their beliefs to build stronger teams, especially in high stress environments, for example, like large meetings, the event industry?
So I'm gonna come back in quite an original way, right? Because very few people challenge the word positivity, all right, when it comes to team building and all the rest of it. And I'm going to challenge it slightly. So I'm a big fan of, this is not my idea, obviously, Jim Collins's Stockdale paradox, I believe it's called. That idea that it's better to be optimistic about the future, positive about where we want to get to, but realistic about where we are now. It's 5 years, I think, to the day, as we record this, since Britain left the European Union, since Brexit. And at that time, I want to get political, but we had a leader in Boris Johnson who wanted to be Churchill, right? And was very sort of like tub-thumpingly positive about everything without necessarily being realistic about the size of the challenge and the potential downsides. And it's left Britain, we are down on the deal as a result of it, okay? Now, again, positivity is really great once you've committed, once you're going to go for something, once you've made that decision. Let's all pull in the same direction in our attempt to get there. But actually, great decision making involves being realistic about our chances. It involves making realistic assessments about likelihoods and probabilities. It involves extricating ourselves from what we want to happen to what we think is likely to happen. Again, this is at the moment of decision. And I think that sometimes we lose sight of that in a world that's always trying to be unremittingly positive. And that can sometimes lead to bad decision making, right, as a result.
Yeah.
So I think everything has its place. Realism, definitely bravery, courage, fostering psychological safety, an environment in which people can not only profit and say, but do things that won't necessarily always succeed, but which, as you've made allusion to, and let's just be explicit about it, the upside, when they happen, is so great that it more than pays for the investments and the things that didn't work. That's the essence of the calculated risk. But I think that combining that with realism and great judgment, I think, is a really important component part of leadership.
Yeah. It might be top of mind because lately I was at a couple of events recently with some sociologists, but I'm a Gen Xer, at least here in North America, and positivity, but grounded in reality with maybe an infinitesimal dose of like healthy cynicism is just, you're preaching to the preacher.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where, I'm sort of using a little sprinkling here of language that I bring into my speeches, right? Which is, that's where good probability assessments come from, okay? And the reason why I keep using that phrase is because central to all of my work, the way that I start off my speeches is having some good jokes about the nature of uncertainty, right? And about how unpredictable the world is. And so if you're talking to someone, I started doing this job when that was regarded as a weird thing to talk about.
Right.
For 2008, a lot of my audiences would be like, why are we talking about, uncertainty? Like, we just turn the handle and the widget comes out, right? And then post-financial crisis, post-COVID, it's now VUCA, agility, it's now the word that everyone wants to talk about. But I was doing it when it was deeply unfashionable. So the essence to uncertainty and the essence to being a great decision maker, and I think a great leader, is embracing that uncertainty, right? It's not about pretending that we can overcome it, okay? Because we can't. We really do not know what the world is going to look like in 5 years, especially as you say with AI. But neither does a poker player. We do not know what the next card is going to be. And in fact, the greatest poker player who's ever played the game doesn't know what the next card is going to be. So that is not the skill set of a poker. The skill set of a poker player is embracing that uncertainty, accepting it, and using the language of probability and calculated risk to still make great resource allocation decisions despite that.
And that's any realm, any domain, any terrain, any field of play in life. I know you don't have children, but you're a smart person. When my kids come home from school and the door opens up, it is pure uncertainty. It could be it could be the whole range from joy to not joy. And you know, I'm not developing my skills at the poker table and that green felt, but boy, I could use those concepts, you know. Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. You know, like again, when I started off doing this, people were genuinely really resistant to it. And I used to talk about things like that, not that exact example, but you know, just to try and make them aware of the uncertainty in their lives. And it did take, you know, the world's finances collapsing twice. To really bring that home to people. But actually we deal with it every single day, you know, relationships, children, relatives, our finances. All of these
community,
things,
you know,
politics, they're in constant flux, technology. And listen, it is difficult because it's, broadly speaking, not what this machine was built to do, right? Broadly speaking, this machine has evolved or was given to us at a time when morning was going to look like evening and the next 5 years are going to be pretty much the same as the last 5 years. Because
pretty much.
It's an interconnected society. It's a smaller, simple, less complex society, etc. So what we're asking people and ourselves to do every day is actually quite unnatural, right? But we can put that set of clothes on. We can wear that suit and adopt those new skills to deal with it.
Sometimes we need a suit of armor.
I think that's what it looks like. It's a suit of armor.
Yeah, it does.